Okay. So welcome to the 2014 Congressional Candidates Debate at Monomoy Regional High School. My name is Kaylin Schultz and I will be moderating today's debate. We are privileged today to have two candidates attending. Please give a round of applause to the Democratic nominee, Representative William Keating. And to the Republican nominee, Mr. John Chapman. And now I ask the audience to hold all applause for the remainder of the debate until the end. We thank the candidates for taking the time to meet with us today. Our format for the debate will start with opening statements from each candidate, limited to 2 minutes. Then our panel of students will ask questions, which the candidates will answer in alternating order. Responses will be limited to 60 seconds unless otherwise stated. 30-second follow-up responses may be allowed by the moderator. We will end with concluding statements limited to 90 seconds. Our timers up front will monitor the length of the responses. Put one hand up with 15 seconds left, and a second hand up at the time limit. The questions were developed by a group of senior government students and prioritized by vote by the team. By lot, Representative Keating has been selected to give the first opening statement. Mr. Keating.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Mr. Dixon, and thank you, Jessica, and Erica, and Megan, and Dalton for participating, all of you. You know, when I went to Afghanistan to visit the troops, I would always go to our soldiers and I would ask them, is there anything I could do for you? These are people that are risking their lives and acting selflessly on our behalf and behalf of the country. And they invariably would say, no, sir, I'm just doing my job. But when I went down to Helmand Province, I came across some Marines and asked them, is there anything I can do for you? And they said, yes, there is. There's a gentleman there who's a local guy who's helping us. He's telling us where the IEDs are. He's telling us information to keep us safe. He's saving our soldiers' lives. If you could just go thank him. So I went into the village down there and I met with him. And I thanked him for what he was doing, and I couldn't help but not ask, why are you doing this? You're risking your life. What's prompting you to take such a selfless act? And he came back and he brought forward his 8-year-old son. And he said, this is why. I want him to have an education. I want him to have a chance in life, an opportunity, and he can't have that here, the way things are now. And I went back home and I began to think about that, and I said, what a great country we have. In our country, if you work hard and play by the rules, you have a chance to succeed and get an education and get a job and make a difference. And we have a system, a political system, where that can be aided by getting involved in government and getting involved in politics. And I just want to tell you how lucky we are. Now, I don't know what's happened to that man now, but he was in great danger. But in this country, we can get involved. And I want to tell you, that's what drives me to be involved in public service. That's why I'm asking for your vote. And I encourage you as strongly as I can. Take today's debate and move forward and use that as one more impetus for your involvement in the future. You have far more at stake in your lives, in your generation, than I do, and I want to help.
The next opening statement will be from Mr. Chapman.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, because I know good afternoon, we're on the cusp here. I do want to thank the students and the faculty here at Monomoy Regional High School. It's great to be here. Thank you, Congressman Keating, as well. It's good to see you again. Let me tell you why I'm running. I'm running because I think Washington is broken. It's completely polarized, it's arrogant, and it's lost touch with the people it's supposed to be representing. Federal government has gotten way too big. Congress isn't listening. Our national debt is $17 trillion and growing, and all we have taking place down in Washington is this partisan bickering. I want to see a strong America. I want to see a strong America domestically so we can grow our economy and add jobs. I want a strong America globally so we can protect our national security and protect ourselves against terrorism. I believe this country is headed in the wrong direction, and I believe my opponent is part of that problem. He's out of touch, and he hasn't been listening to the needs of the district. We need to focus on jobs in the district. We need to make it a #1 priority. We need to remove burdensome regulations. We need to lower taxes. We need to make it easier for businesses to thrive. My opponent has a 0% rating from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. What does that mean to me? It means 100% of the time he's been voting against the interests of small business and voting against the interests of the communities here in the district. Spending is also out of control. It's gotten reckless down in Washington. Congress is part of that problem. I'm saying they're the root of that problem. My opponent, he has, since he's been in office for 4 short years, he's voted on legislation that has increased our national debt well over $2 trillion. What we need is balance in our congressional delegation from Massachusetts. And if elected, I would be a seat and be part of the majority. That's what the district needs. That's what Massachusetts needs. You need a congressman who's going to put district first, not partisan politics, who will listen to your needs, and go to Washington and get it done. I thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Again, to please refrain from applause just to save time today. We're going to allow a 30-second follow-up response, and then we're going to get to the questions.
The South Coast paper said it's imperative that I get reelected to move our regional economic futures forward. Let me talk about the radio ad 0%. That's not a business group. That's funded by Karl Rove Crossroads and the Koch brothers. They've taken 10 votes. And those votes include opening the doors to oil drilling off Cape Cod shores. They include having women pay more from the health care than men. They include seniors no longer having prescription coverage under Medicare. Those are just a sampling of the many things that are there. I think that you should understand, I'm moving the economic future of this region forward, and that those 10 votes funded by those people are no indication of that.
Do I have a chance to respond? What's interesting, Congressman, you've distorted a lot of facts. A lot of facts about myself, but also about the NFIB. The NFIB is a national small business group. There are 1,200 members here in the 9th Congressional District, and I think when you say that type of thing, it's insulting to all those members. Interesting that you say that because the NFIB has endorsed many Democrats as well. Here in Massachusetts, Representative Colleen Gary in Drake, Representative Jonathan Slotnick in Gardner, James Timilty in Walpole, Walter Timilty in Milton, Senator O'Connor, Ives in Newburyport, and James Dwyer in Woburn. That's not the group that you're describing. But that's also the group that's endorsed my candidacy.
Okay, we're going to move on to the questions now. Our first question will be asked by Jessica Wilson.
What reforms should Congress adopt to improve education? Should high school students have to pass a standardized test to graduate?
Does the question go to me first?
Yes, Mr. Chapman.
Okay, I'm sorry. I do think that we need a lot of changes in our education system. I believe with education, it should be left to the state level. I think the state should decide what the standards should be. I believe government closer to the people is more responsive to the people. And having a federal standardized level is not something I support. I'm opposed to the Common Core program. I think that we should have states have control over what the standards should be. We have great schools here in Massachusetts, and I think it should be left up to the states to decide what the standards are, and left up to the communities for the parents and the teachers to decide what the standards are.
I think standards are, that information is helpful just for that, for information, not for prerequisites. I think the biggest problem is our student loan issues. We have more student loan debt in this country right now than we do all the debt for all the credit cards combined. The difference in our campaign, I voted to cut the student loan rate in half. Mr. Chapman has taken out ads criticizing me for that vote. The Pell Grants are cut at the lowest level in the history of the Pell Grants, and that gives people like yourself a chance to afford college. At the local level, we're seeing now great innovation. We're seeing dual enrollment, where you can take some high school courses and get credit for college, where you can move forward in terms of having more choices in your curriculum. At the end of the day, all those things are important, but if people can't afford to go to college, then they'll mean nothing.
How much time do I have to respond here?
You may have a 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you very much. Once again, Congressman, you're distorting my positions. What you're referring to in the ad, and where I'm critical of you, is where you voted to increase the flood insurance rates here in Massachusetts by 25%. You're referencing, when you talk about student loans, you don't know what my position is, but you have put out negative flyers as well as negative ads saying that I'm opposed to lowering student loan rates. That's not my position. That's not what I would want to do. I was speaking specifically to your voting for the provision of increased flood insurance by 25%.
Mr. Keating.
The vote either is this, John, and I'm going to give a little time. You're either voting for flood insurance to continue or no on flood insurance. You're either voting for South Coast Rail to be funded or you're not. And you're voting to keep student loans at double the rate or half the rate. There was no chance to amend that. If you read the bill, you would know it's an up or down vote. So here, tell everyone here, because you want to be a congressman, yes or no, and no in between, because we don't get in between. Yes or no on that vote.
The problem with Washington is that you can break things out. It's not about yes and no for everything. What you're doing is insulting the students here, because the process, you should have been a voice to object to that provision. Even if you said you were going to vote for it, you should have objected to that provision, because you're not recognizing the needs of the district. You're just giving me Washington speak. I do understand the process, and I understand you weren't listening.
I would ask the candidates to refrain from interrupting each other. I will allow follow-ups on each question if you really want them. Would you like to respond?
Yes, the bill that you said was a partisan bill that I was following. Was a Republican bill. And under the rules of that bill, by the Republicans in Congress, you weren't allowed to amend it. You weren't allowed to it. You still haven't answered the question that you've spent so much money attacking me on radio ads. Yes or no? If you want to go for a seat, you have to be prepared to take a stand. Yes or no on that vote that you criticized me for taking? Yes or no?
I would have voted no on raising flood insurance rates and been a voice for the district and let them know. We're a primarily coastal district, Congressman. I'm not sure if you knew that. But we need to focus on these things, and you need to be a voice. You can't attach everything together. You're insulting to all of these students here, particularly those who want to learn about government. It's not about lumping things together. That's Washington speak. We don't need more of that from Washington. We need real representation.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question now, asked by Erica Meany.
In some cases, parents are working 2 jobs to support their households and pay for college. At the same time, students are graduating with astronomical debt. What can Congress do to help young people afford a college education?
Well, one thing we can do is vote to cut the student loan in half, and that answer is allowing it to stay double what it was. And another thing we can do is to do what we're doing here, have a strong community college system. I've worked to get $3 million more for STEM and other kinds of work at Cape Cod Community College. Bridgewater College is coming here too. There'll be affordable options right here in this region. We also have to take the federal dollars that are being spent and make sure that there's a requirement that you don't get as much in terms of the federal dollars if your tuition rates are out of line and increasing at too great a rate. At the end of the day, I'm hiring someone in my office that is able to pay off his tuition statement with years working with me. We should encourage that in the private and the public side to help reduce this great burden.
We agree on something. and that's investing in community colleges and Voc-Tech high schools in our education system. We do need to make it more affordable for students to be able to go to college, and that's something we have to work on, and I believe the federal government has a role there. The role is to try to bring rates down and to have favorable terms to students. This is a no-brainer. This should not be a partisan issue, and I would fight hard to make sure that our education system gets the resources that it needs. Just yesterday was at Cape Cod Community College. What an amazing program they have there. And I learned about the role that the need for federal grants. And I also learned, I went to Bristol Community College and heard the same thing. And I think it's important for Congress to be communicating with the colleges, community colleges, as well as the students, making sure that we have the best resources from the federal government available.
Would you, yes?
Yep, thank you. You've criticized me for voting 93% of the time with some people. It's not important who you vote with, it's who you vote for. And I voted for the people in this area on these issues. I voted to make sure that it was 1/2 of what it would be for student loans. I voted to make sure that the funding is there for our community colleges. And those are the votes you vote for as opposed to being against. The Ryan budget, I voted against, one of the 93%. That cut Pell Grants to the lowest level they've ever been.
Mr. Chapman, 30 seconds, and then we'll move on.
I do. Education has to be the focus, and I also would vote for lowering student loan rates. I would vote for supporting resources coming into the communities. And when you vote for something, the point you reference is 93%. I have said on numerous occasions that I believe Congressman Keating has been too partisan. He has voted 93% of the time with President Obama and Nancy Pelosi. And that doesn't demonstrate to me the ability to cross the aisle.
Our next question will be asked by Megan Welchman, and this is a 90-second response.
Students are worried about what jobs will be available to them when they graduate. What can Congress do to improve the job market? What action should be taken to help local economic conditions, for example, in the fishing and tourism industries?
Mr. Chapman.
Well, we touched a little bit upon that in the last question, which was investing in our public universities, our community colleges, as well as our Voc-Tech high schools, to make sure that we have the right programs and adequate training for the businesses here. I believe if we invest in workforce development programs and workforce training and partner with business, you can identify where the training gaps are. And so when students graduate from these programs, that they have the ability to go to a job. I believe that businesses will want to relocate here in the tourism, in the hospitality business, as well as in the fishing industry. And I believe that if we invest in these programs, we're going to have the jobs.
Thank you. I'm the co-sponsor of the Workforce Development Bill that does all those things, that deals with community colleges, job training, making that one system, working together. I also, in the fishing industry, was a leader in the entire Congress on getting $75 million in disaster relief for our distressed fishermen. I've also worked in another historic industry, moving their industry forward, and that's the cranberry industry, one of the greatest industries we've had agriculturally in this area. But in the areas of small business, I was a leader on the Small Business Committee in making sure innovation funds for small businesses are kept forward and actually increased as well. And these things are paying off with companies right in our district right now. Government does have a role, and government can be effective, and we're doing that right here in Cape Cod with a regional marine industry moving forward that's going to have a place, I think, second to none in the United States.
I have 30 seconds?
Yes.
Because I would just like to address the fishing bill you speak about where you secured $75 million. I last week was in New Bedford at a fisherman's meet and greet. This is an issue that hits home to me. My brother was a fisherman, commercial fisherman out of Chapman for 25 years. I'll tell you what I heard from them. I heard that of the $75 million, $33 million of it was going to the 9th Congressional District. And what does that mean for each individual fisherman? It means between $30,000 and $40,000. It's a drop in the bucket. But the point that I want to make is that they haven't seen the money yet, and it's been several years. As congressman, I would fight to make sure that money gets in the hands of the fishing industry.
That was just clear just a short time ago. I saw your meeting. I put together a federal advisory board, not 4 people in a restaurant. I talked to them, I've worked with them, I've done legislation that gives them safety training and protects the most dangerous commercial enterprise of all the jobs in the entire country, fishing. I'll continue to work with them. I'm working in diversifying the stock, moving it forward, and that disaster relief, $30,000 might not sound like much money to you, but to those people just trying to get by, it's a lot of money.
Well, I spoke to the fishermen, and yes, Congressman, it was in a restaurant, but it was in the district. And I was listening to the people who I'm supposed to be representing.
Okay, we're going to move on now. Our next question is asked by Dalton Nickerson, and we're back to 60 seconds.
Many young people today are concerned about the level of national debt. What should Congress do to reduce the deficit? What combination of increased revenue and decreased spending should we pursue?
Representative Keating.
Thank you. You asked the question the right way, Dalton. Combination. It's just not a singular approach to austerity that'll work. I'll tell you what doesn't work, shutting down the government because you won't raise the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is there to pay past bills. When you don't pay, not to have increased spending, and when you don't raise it, government shuts down the way it did just last year. $24 billion lost, according to Standard & Poor's. 120,000 jobs lost as a result of that. It was government at its worst. And you know what? When people that have the same position you do, John, about not raising the debt ceiling, refuse to go forward, and we were at the brink of an unbelievable collapse in our country, I crossed the aisles because there were controls of cost put on a Republican plan to try and get the votes. I broke with the other Democrats, crossed the aisle, and I voted yes to open government back up. Unlike yourself, who just says we cannot raise the debt ceiling.
In the words of my political mentor, there you go again, distorting my position. I have, when it comes to government spending, spending in Washington has been out of control. It's been reckless. All of Congress is to blame for the shutdown last year. I would have not voted for a shutdown of the government, but I believe if you're going to address the debt, we have to have substantial cuts along with it. You have to do the two together, just like you said, a combination. You have to accompany it with substantial cuts. Did you know I just learned about a GAO report that did an audit last year of federal government? We have $200 billion of redundant programs. So, you asked about cuts, that's where I would cut first.
I would just say this, that when you don't raise the debt ceiling, government shuts down. And that's what happened last year. And so you can't have it both ways.
30 seconds, Mr. Chapman.
No, I'll let that pass because I just do feel that, actually no, I won't let it pass. You have to have cuts along with it, and you gave no suggestion of a cut. Another cut besides the $200 billion I just spoke about in redundant programs would be many cuts that we could have, that Obamacare is inflicting upon individuals and businesses. I would start there and try to cut some of those expenses.
All right, we're going to move on. The next question will be asked by Jessica Wilson.
What should Congress be doing to help combat the Ebola outbreak both at home and abroad?
Is that for me?
Yes, Mr.
Yes, thank you. Ebola is a serious concern. It's on the front page of the paper every single day. I believe Congress should be, right now, immediately imposing travel bans from those countries that are where the outbreak of the virus is rampant. Also suspending visas from those countries as well. And I also believe here locally what the governor should do is convene all the hospital CEOs and make sure that we have the right training and protocols should an outbreak take place here in the United States. It's something that we need to focus on. I just learned from a nurses association, 76% of them polled did not feel like the healthcare institution they worked for was safe or had the right training. We need to make sure that's in place so we can protect our healthcare workers on the front lines.
I voted not to cut National Institute of Health funding that has slowed down the idea of getting a vaccine for Ebola in the first place. Those are the cuts that your party imposed that also, in terms of Dalton's question, those are things that grow our economy at the same time. We are so lucky that we have military, 3,000 or 4,000 in number, that have gone to West Africa, that are there, and they're building facilities and labs and stopping it right where it is. And that's critical. I too support, at least, and it's a hard decision to suspend visas at this time too, to try and keep it contained as best we can. But I'll tell you locally, you don't have to have the governor convene, because if you talk to the local hospitals in our region, the Cape Cod Health System, they've already done that. They've spent $100,000, everyone will be glad to know. They've retrained, refocused, done everything to take a precaution. So we should be proud of our healthcare system here in the Cape because they've done that.
Our next question will be asked by Erica Beanie, and it's 90 seconds.
When should Congress have to declare a war before we get involved in a conflict? Should Congress have to authorize the current military action in Iraq and Syria? What exactly should our government be doing to combat ISIS?
Representative Keating.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you, one thing we shouldn't have done is we shouldn't have gone home as early as Congress has for the last half century without voting on many of those issues. It's a disgrace. One of those votes I voted for the people with was to vote no to adjourn so we could deal with this issue. I support the tactical strikes that we've had. It's blunted ISIS. And I voted no to try and take the Syrian rebel army, give them lethal weapons, train them when they're infiltrated already with terrorists. And their primary goal is not to eradicate ISIS, but to take Bashar Assad down. And I also listened to our generals who told us we're not going to be successful doing this if we vote this way unless we put our own soldiers, our own troops on the ground. That is something I'm not going to do under the circumstances. We learned our lesson in Iraq, and also on the financial side, when we're talking about our deficit and our debt, Harvard just did a study, $4 to $6 trillion it cost us to fund 2 wars that we did on a credit card.
Mr. Chapman.
ISIS is a serious threat to our country, there's no doubt, and it's a serious threat globally. We need to disassemble ISIS. I think it's grown in recent years because of failed and weak policies of the president. What I really think the president should have done a few years ago was make sure we had a status and forces agreement in Iraq before we withdrew troops. Once again, this is a demonstration of a president that is being reactive rather than proactive. Congressman Keating referred to a vote that you recently voted no on arming Syrian rebels. I would have voted yes. I do believe we need to work hard and fight the threat of ISIS. And helping arm Syrian rebels would be a start. I also believe that we should be securing our borders for immigration. The threat of ISIS, I don't want to see ingrown terrorism come into this country. I don't want to see terrorism cross over these borders. I don't want another 9/11. I don't want another Boston Marathon bombing. We need to also secure our borders and take on immigration reform first and foremost.
We tried to stay in Iraq. Under basic international law, you can't do it unless the other country agrees to, and they wouldn't. So what did that mean? That meant if we kept our people there and they were protecting themselves and someone was killed, they could be tried for murder in that country. We couldn't keep our troops there under that circumstance, and I think you know that. In terms of the borders, I hope we get into that before this is over, but the plan of taking frontline defense, our National Guards, putting them in the border that you've criticized me for not voting for, and not allowing them, they're not allowed to have weapons, they're not allowed to arrest. They basically stand there, and we're removing them from an important function they're performing right now. That bill weakened our security.
Mr. Chapman.
As I said in my opening, we need a strong America. And part of a strong America is to make sure that we support a strong military and have a strong foreign policy and have a plan. Our president's foreign policy has been weak and ineffective, and it's put us at a disadvantage. We can't continue with this. This is not the time to be reducing our troop levels to pre-World War II levels. That's not the time to do it. We need to make sure that we support our military and support our troops who are fighting hard for us overseas, our men and women who are serving us. This is something that has to be a priority.
Our next question will be asked by Megan Welchman.
What other conflicts do you think the U.S. should be involved in? For example, Sudan, where Darfuris and South Sudanese face an expected famine in 2015, largely due to the actions of the Sudan government.
Mr. Keating.
Oh, it's my turn to go first. I would focus on, certainly I think the ISIS threat, and we have to focus on Russia and what Putin is doing. He is a thug who is advancing, Russia is advancing, and we have to focus on those conflicts first. Because part of having a strong America, we've never entered into a conflict. There was a quote from Reagan, actually, where he said, "We've never entered into a conflict because we were too strong." So we need a strong military, and we need a plan, a comprehensive plan. Certainly Sudan should be part of that plan, but we don't have any direction from the president about foreign policy, nor do we have any direction from Congressman Keating, who sits on the Foreign Policy Committee. As I mentioned, you have voted 93% of the time with the president and with Nancy Pelosi. So from my perspective, you are supporting an ineffective and weak foreign policy.
Well, I'll tell you that I think most people here that understand separation of powers, the president isn't a member of Congress, so I'm not voting with him. As a matter of fact, you're voting with him on that plan to arm the Syrian rebels. I stood up against him. I stood up against him when he wanted to go into Libya as well. And I've disagreed with him on amending the Affordable Care Act, which I've done. Doing away with the medical device tax. Helping the 1099 issue that was there. So don't talk to me about voting with the president or not voting with the president. I'll tell you this. I vote not with anyone else you're talking about. I vote for the people. It's not important who you vote with. It's important who you vote for. And the issues that I have had large support in this district. And that's why they elected me. That's why I'm asking people again to give me support. And that's why I think I do a great job of reflecting the views of this district.
30-second response.
93% of the time is the number. That's an A. 0% on small business is an F. So when you vote 93% of the time with the president, with Nancy Pelosi, yes, I do understand, Congressman, that the president is not part of Congress. But you know, I wouldn't know it with 93%.
Well, that 93% includes charging women more for the health care than men. That 93% deals with not letting people stay under their insurance policy, their parents' policy, until they're 26. That 93% takes away Medicare prescription funding for our seniors. That 93% takes away unemployment things that are there, and actually overtime things that are there as well for our workers. Those issues are issues that I vote with the people in my district for. And that's what's different. The agenda you're setting with 0% is not set with the people here. It's set by Karl Rove and Crossroads and the Koch brothers.
I would remind the candidates to stick to the time limits, and our next question will be asked by Dalton Nickerson.
I don't get a response, I guess. That's fine. That's fine. Continue on.
You had the first one.
No, please. Continue on.
Oh, I was just going to say that the next question is asked by Dalton Nickerson.
Should Congress raise the minimum wage? Will this help or hurt the economy?
Congress should raise it to 10, and it should do that because it's one way to bring back the middle class. The frightening drop of the middle class wage earners is dragging our economy back and will. Without a vibrant middle class, we won't be able to do that. That's the way we can take more people out of poverty, make them more independent, have them go on their own, which is what we want in this country. If people play by the rules, work hard, they should have that chance. That's what I stand for. I think that's what, again, the people of my district believe in it as well.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a contrast here as well. I do not believe we should be raising the minimum wage at this point. I think it's a job killer. What we should be focusing on is investing in, as I mentioned, the community colleges and VOC high schools. The best way for recovery is for people to have a job. If you're trained as an electrician, as a plumber, you will be able to have higher wages. You'll be able to have better paying jobs. That's the goal. And this district, the backbone of our economy is the small business, the convenience stores, the tradesmen, the fishermen. This is what keeps us, this district strong. We haven't had that opportunity with Congressman Keating with a 0% rating. What they're rating Congressman Keating on is he did not vote on any legislation to support small business.
That's simply not true. There were 10 votes, and they got to choose them, Rove and the Koch brothers. Now listen, I want to tell you this. Excuse me, do I have a few minutes while the audience calms down?
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I was hoping we'd be polite. I just want to tell you, Charlie Baker moved away from your tax policy. Your tax policy that you've said raises the taxes on the middle class. If you want to look at moderation, the endorsements I mentioned with the Boston Globe, with the Patriot Ledger, and the South Coast newspapers, they all endorsed Charlie Baker, and they endorsed me because of my economic plans and my business model.
Mr. Chapman.
You talked about my tax policy. I'm not the one who's the congressman right now, Congressman Keating. You are. I don't have a record that you can point to. You don't know what my position is on tax policy. And so don't suggest that. I know what my positions are. Don't try to extrapolate from other people what my positions would be.
You said in the Republican primary you were for a flat tax. You said you were for yes, you did. And you said that you were for a constitutional limit on the budget. And you said that you wouldn't raise the debt ceiling, something that leads to a government shutdown every time and the loss of 120,000 jobs just for that period it was shut down. And clinical trials where people were waiting with hope to try and get needed, life-saving medical service, all shut down with your economic policy.
These lies that you make, Congressman Keating, are beneath the office, and I believe the voters and the students in this room know that. That is just despicable from my standpoint. You should not be misrepresenting or distorting what my positions are. On taxes, I believe we should have a fairer and flatter tax system. And we need to have reforms with tax policy.
Please refrain from interrupting each other. And our next question will be asked by Jessica Wilson.
What should Congress do to create more gender equality, including equal pay for equal work?
Mr. Chapman.
I would be very supportive of any program that Congress should do for equal pay, for equal work. And I think that's so important. We need to send a message that no matter what your gender, you should be paid for the work that you do. And that's critical.
Well, I'm glad you said that, but it's at direct odds between votes you've criticized me for and attacked me with radio ads on, and that's votes that would not have women pay more for their health care than men. Votes that, even if you're pro-choice, votes that would have a health care system where someone's boss or some politician in Washington is going to tell them what to do with their most intimate and personal health care decisions. That doesn't sound like equal treatment to women to me.
Mr. Chapman.
I will respond on attack ads. You're the one that's dropped $500,000 into media these last 2 weeks with attack ads against me. You're extrapolating a record that doesn't exist. You are making lies and distorting my positions. You're the one that should be ashamed.
I'm not distorting your position because your position, which isn't known well, comes from the Republican primary. It comes from the specific bills that you said I voted the wrong way on. And that's a matter of fact, and they're footnoted in all our efforts. Now, no one has done more attack ads than you have. You've been doing it for months. My ads were a chance to answer back. And if you look at most of the ads, mine are positive ads, because I have a record to run on. You keep saying you have no record, but as a candidate, you can't say something in the primary. You can't say, attack someone on this bill. When you said, in one instance, you might even vote the same way and agree on it. You can't have it both ways.
We just respectfully disagree. We come in from two different perspectives, and it's good that we're having this debate. You're distorting my positions, Congressman.
Would you like to respond?
They're all footnoted, and they're all there. You know, you just can't do things like the old Etch-a-Sketch model where you say something one time and then you shake the Etch-a-Sketch and then you redraw it when you're in the general election and you're trying to deal with more moderate positions. But those are your positions. They're all footnoted, they're all there. Yours, on the other hand, deal with issues that you say, in one instance you wouldn't say how they vote, other instances you say you vote against them, but those very positions are the ones we're bringing up. You can't have it both ways, and you know, if you're going to run for office and you're going to stand up and be heard, just the way I was when I said we should not recess, we should make tough decisions and tough votes and let the people know where we stand, you have to do that if you're going to, you know, run for this office.
We're going to move on to our next question. I would also like to stress that we want to keep to the questions and the time frame so that we can answer as many questions as possible. Our next question is going to be given by Erica Vini.
Do you support the right of same-sex couples to marry? Should Congress take any action related to this?
Yes, I do, and I support it that way publicly. And in our Congress, those people, you know, that didn't agree with that went to court, spent taxpayers' money trying to go to the Supreme Court, wasting taxpayers' money to try and stop that from happening. But I believe in treating people that way. I was that way as a district attorney, as a matter of fact, running trainings for police officers on these issues of gender equality, issues of dealing with gay, lesbian, transsexual, bisexual, making sure that the people that implement the laws at the frontline level are trained to defend our civil rights, something very important to me.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes, I am pro-gay marriage, and I've been public about that from the very beginning, when I announced in January. I believe, however, Congress doesn't play a role in this. I think this is something that's a decision that should be left up to the states. Massachusetts made that decision in 2004 with a decision, and I would not be going to Washington to try to change that position.
Moving on, our next question will be asked by Megan Welchman.
Should Congress do more to promote alternative energy sources and energy independence, or pursue other environmental initiatives such as banning plastic bags?
Mr. Chapman?
Compound question, but yes, Congress should do more to be promoting and providing incentives for people for renewable projects and for projects with solar and wind. As we touch upon that, there's a contrast here between myself and Congressman Keating. I am opposed to the Cape Wind project. I'm opposed to it for a number of reasons. One, initially because of where it was sited, Gem, Nantucket Sound. And more recently, I'm opposed to it because of the economics of the project. The project is going to add $3 to $4 billion to Massachusetts ratepayers. If we want to bring energy costs down, we need to take an all-of-the-above approach. And that means investing in renewables. It means investing in trying to promote all sources of energy, oil, gas, and nuclear.
You know what's great about this is, every time you say these issues, you're voting more with Nancy Pelosi. Because these are the issues where I voted for the people I represent that you're saying is something, is a quantitative number that's wrong with. I mean, your number's scooting right up in the course of this debate, and I'm happy to see some of that. Now, Cape Wind means 1,000 jobs to part of this district. And you said that, well, I just want another project and they'll go there. Well, it doesn't work that way in the real world. There's private financing coming in, it's there. So you're against 1,000 jobs, you're against enough renewable energy that it equals 3/4 of what it takes to energize Cape Cod itself. I've got to tell you that some of these issues are critical. Now, one of them is that will flatten out in a clean way our rates and keep them down. But I want to know what you do. Are you going to be a person that's going to be, again, come towards the 93% and do what I did, put an amendment in to eliminate the $4.3 billion in subsidies we give the oil companies? Are you going to vote that way? Are you going to make sure that you mean, when you mean renewables and you mean getting to our debt issue, that you're willing to stand up to the plate and vote against $4.3 billion in oil subsidies? That's where we can get some of the money. without raising taxes to put in these renewables?
To use your words, Congressman, I would vote for the people in this district. And the 1,000 jobs you're talking about are in New Bedford, with the New Bedford Marine Terminal. I know you just were celebrating that. But let's talk about the 1,000 jobs. These are turbines that are being made overseas. And these jobs that you are referencing are temporary construction jobs. They're not permanent jobs. I would want to fight for the people in the district, make sure that they were permanent construction jobs or permanent jobs. We can support the New Bedford Marine Terminal. There's an opportunity to have deep offshore wind projects, and I see New Bedford being a platform for any deep offshore wind project on the East Coast, and it's a great opportunity for jobs, but it's not going to come from the Cape Wind project.
I'll give you a second. What about the $4.3 billion a year we're giving the oil companies? How about taking some of that money, cutting that, and putting it to renewables?
I was saying I'm voting for the people of the district, and that's not oil companies.
So you...
Moving on, our next question will be asked by Dalton Nickerson.
Do you think the Affordable Care Act is working? Also, what else should Congress do on the issue of health care?
Mr. Keating.
Affordable Care Act would, repealing that the way you want, would cost $109 billion the next 10 years, added to our deficit. Massachusetts has had that in place. We're the first state out of the economic recession, and among the lowest unemployment, and our economy has moved forward to the rest of the country. Now, we agree on that. What we don't agree on is, how about the other things after that? How about making sure women don't pay more for their health insurance than men? How about people with pre-existing serious conditions like cancer not losing their insurance coverage if they change jobs? How about making sure that the prescription drug coverage is there for seniors and we're closing the donut hole? How about making sure there's insurance till you're 26? All those things are the difference between the Massachusetts bill and the Affordable Care Act. Those are things people want. So I voted not with someone on that, I voted for the people in my district on those issues.
I would vote for a repeal of the Affordable Care Act. I believe it's been an absolute disaster. And just recently, actually, when you're talking about voting for the people in the district, Congressman Keating has defended Obamacare every step of the way, including most recently, about a month ago, you voted against the grandfather clause to keep your health care plan if you like it. I would have voted for that. That's a promise that the president made. That's what we should have. What I do believe we should do is go back to what we had here in Massachusetts. We were a model of health care. It should be run at the state level. We did it. We passed it on a bipartisan basis without raising taxes. And I'm proud to say I was part of that reform team that working for Governor Romney and his administration to support the health care reforms that we had. The website was a lot cheaper. I think it was $3 million versus $300 million. And we have too many costs associated with Obamacare, like taking Medicare from our seniors to pay for Obamacare. These things we can't allow to happen. We need to get healthcare costs under control.
30 seconds.
Medicare costs are going lower since Obamacare. The rise in healthcare costs in this nation is at the lowest level it ever has been because of Obamacare. About your grandfather clause, you know, I voted for repeal of the medical device tax. I voted for the 1099 repeal. Dan Wolf, our senator, went to Washington. In that hearing, they were talking about those plans you want to keep. One of them, at that hearing, when you spent $6,000 in insurance coverage, you didn't have any more coverage. We want to make sure that's not happening because otherwise, the rest of us that are paying our premiums are paying for those people who are not paying those premiums.
Mr. Chapman, and please try to stick to the 30-second time limit.
I will, thank you. I've been out in the district listening to the people, and I'll tell you what I've heard. I heard from a bakery owner, actually here, locally in Chatham, who talked about their healthcare costs tripling, and not even knowing if they had healthcare insurance. I spoke to a manufacturing company in New Bedford that talked about their healthcare costs increasing 6 figures. This is not a system that works. And so many people I've also talked to, just yesterday, I spoke to a gentleman whose health care, he has high deductibles of $6,000. He's not going to seek health care because he can't afford the deductible.
Our next question will be the last question, given by Jessica Wilson.
Considering the ongoing problem of school shootings, what federal actions would you support to reduce gun violence?
Mr. Chapman.
I believe that I do not believe we should have additional federal legislation with gun laws. Here in Massachusetts, we have some of the strongest gun laws in the nation. And I believe it should be a model for other states. And what I would do is enforce the existing laws here in the state, and I think that's what states should do.
Mr. Keating.
I've got to tell you that maybe you didn't understand what happened in Virginia Tech with the school shootings, but the guns came from out of state into Virginia Tech for those shootings. You can't have all types of gun control at the borders. You'll have one. I was a district attorney. I've got to tell you, we knew the influx of guns across the borders. We knew the illegal guns coming in across the borders because I was in law enforcement. Are we any safer if there's one law in Rhode Island, one in Connecticut, one in New Hampshire, one in Vermont, in terms of the basic issues? A mental health background check for those that have serious mental health. Common sense changes. Sponsored by a member of the NRA in Congress, who was a Vietnam veteran, and he's behind that. Congress has a role, and if we're going to keep our country safe here at home, then we have to stand up to the gun lobby and stand up and be told and vote yes or no and not be afraid of it.
Mr. Chapman, 30 seconds.
Again, as I mentioned, it should be handled at the state level. What we have a fundamental right, or our Constitution. I'm a supporter of the Constitution. But states are well equipped to handle it. And I believe that's where the law should be. And Massachusetts, as I mentioned, strongest gun laws in the nation. And I believe other states should follow. And we should have a discussion about the tragedies that are taking place with Newtown and Aurora, Colorado, out in Washington State.